Good afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Safari. You are staring at the rear end of a beautiful waterbuck. But there are many animals down in the valley today. The clouds are gone, well, sort of. The sun is out, however, and it is a lot warmer than what it started off on the sunrise safari. But we've got to get down to business this afternoon. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Archie. And we're back in the triangle. We'll be driving around. Now this is a live and interactive safari, so if you've joined us for the first time, it's great to have you on board. All you have to do to talk to myself, Ralph, and well, whoever down in South Africa will be joining us. They'll be joining us too a little bit later. You can hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you could also talk to us via the YouTube chat. That's also acceptable. Now, it's the moment that you've all been waiting for. Badge. Everybody ready? Ralph has got his best kit on. He's brushed his hair, brushed his teeth, put a bit of makeup on. He's looking fabulous. Right. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to put the cables in the pocket first. Ralph. I feel like I'm in excess of these things though, and I'm owed many of them. Right. So this is how we do it from now on. We'll have to show Jamie how we hand over and have proper ceremonies. I, Taylor Jane McCurdy, Queen of the Marshmallow Club, forever and always. I feel like I'm a founding member these days. Now officially knight you, Ralph, what's your second name?
Kirsten.
No,
Godfrey.
There we go. Ralph Godfrey Kirsten.
I shall wear it with pride.
There we go. The new Marshmallow Queen, everybody. Everybody please clap. Woo! There we go. So that's going to go on his dashboard for you all to see and stare at all the time until I get stuck again, because we all know that's probably going to happen, and while I try and awkwardly get into the car. So Ralph is going to zip on down the road and hopefully find some wonderful things. Now I'll let you out on a little secret. This morning, after driving around, eventually making our way back up the escarpment, we spotted some tawny cats not too far away. It was the Angamas. I don't know where they've gone though, but if you see that there's an Angama vehicle actually going down the road now, which we're going to take. And they were about where that car is now and then off to the left. But there's no shade there. They were sitting out in the open. So where have they gone? Like I said, the sun has come out. So unless they were like that black rock lioness we had yesterday afternoon baking in the sun, I doubt it. They're either going to be under one of those trees, or perhaps they've gone to the forest. And seeing as though there's a buffalo walking in that direction, and I don't really know what's down below the hill. I think that we should probably go and investigate there first, and then if we don't find any lions, we'll do a couple of loops and laps. I'm really good at doing loops and laps, and then try and find something else. How does that sound? I think it sounds quite nice. Now I just need to try and get out of here, so I'm going to do the old reverse. Try not drive into the big tree that I park behind, or a rock. I'm probably going to hit a rock. So I know that I did about a 30 point... Oh, Faith, I'm so sorry. I completely forgot to plug myself in. I was wondering why it was so quiet. My bad. I'm plugged back in now. Yes, Faith says Rogue Safari. Oh, imagine that! I wish I could do a game drive without an earpiece. I think you'd probably end up crash cutting away from me though. Okay, so I'm just watching that I don't hit the really big rocks. The small ones I'm not too worried about. But unfortunately, not the most easy car to sort of turn around. There we go. Oh, I didn't do too bad. I thought I was going to do about a 7-point turn at least. And we did it a bit easier today. Over the bumps we go. Okay, hold on here, Arch. Wait, bumpy. Right, now Linda, thank you so much for your question this afternoon. You won the award of being the first person to ask me a question. Lots of claps and awards. We'll be positively reinforcing things today with claps and woos and yays and all those types of things. What animal would I like to see on safari? Well, I'm pretty happy to see any animal. I did say to Ralph though that I would like to find a big herd of elephants that are close by with lots of babies chasing cattle egrets. That's what I'd like to see today. Archie, what would you like to see? Baby elephants too, right? Well, then I suppose we're going to have to try and find some elephants then, if both of us want to see it. What do all of you want to see on safari today? I'm not going to stop at these zebra. The reason why is because I just want to go down and find these lions and figure out what's going on. I don't know when they last ate. And we know the Angama pride like to hunt during the middle of the day. They do it all the time. I've only seen them successfully catch something once, and that was a zebra. So, you never know. Let's quickly try and figure out where they are. All the cars have gone down the other side, so maybe they're down there. And I see a few cars coming up this way, so perhaps we're going to hit the jackpot in terms of cats relatively quickly this sunset safari, which I know you'll all be happy about. Okay, well, you've already seen Ralph, but he's going to officially introduce himself to all of you. He's just down the way, and he's sitting with a troop of baboons.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome aboard once more for the Sunset Safari here in Kenya in the Mara Triangle. It's a wonderful afternoon, and look at the grooming going on with these baboons. It's a fantastic day and a brilliant start to the afternoon. It's going to be an excellent safari, methinks. And my name is Ralph Kirsten, and on the camera we have Manu. Hey Manu. So thank you folks. Yes, I am now the proud new wearer of the marshmallow badge, and for those of you that don't know, that's because I got stuck. I think it was the day before yesterday. Luckily I didn't need to call for help because there was help just around the next bend, and we made very light work of getting out of it. But if you don't get stuck, you're not trying hard enough, is what I always say. Please don't forget to join us on the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and on the YouTube live chat. It needs to be as interactive as possible because this is all for you, the viewers. And it's so tranquil here with these baboons moving through. It's a lovely start, I think, and they've all been going about their business of just foraging and grooming as you do in the middle of the day, and it's always lovely to watch baboons. I can never get enough of them. What have you all been doing out there all around the world? Please get in touch, let us know. Now, Mia, you're already asking, well done for getting involved. You're wondering, when is the baboons' breeding season? Well, Mia, they don't particularly have a breeding season, and much like the other primates, they will breed all throughout the year. So it's never a set period, and baboons have no season for their reproduction. But it's always increased a little bit around when there are more resources, as we always talk about. It's when everything's good, then they enjoy it that much more, and they also then reproduce. So lovely to see that. I wonder what they're after. It seems here in this area there are a lot of the fruits that have been falling off the tree, and we did just see one of them shaking the branches. I think it's a wild apricot that they've been shaking, and they seem to really frequent this area around this wild apricot. But yes, a lovely start. There are some zebra and wildebeest in the area, but that's obviously a male walking through there. He's got a very dark bottom. The females have a lot redder, and you see how he's very dexterous in using those hands and feet, very much like all the primates, and they walk plantigrade with the whole foot on the ground. So there where it looks like its ankle, it actually is its ankle, as opposed to a lot of the other animals which either walk on the fingers or right on the toes, where you think is the knee is actually the ankle. So that one showing more like humans, and that's why we often like watching baboons and monkeys and the rest of the primates, because they are very human-like in their behavior. Very different once again to the ones in the Djuma area. Now, Shine, you're wondering how many baboons live in a group together? Well, it can differ in different areas, but baboons are very gregarious, and if you don't know what that term means, it means they're highly sociable, and so they do like to stay in groups. And it goes to show, when you take a baboon and isolate him, if he spends enough time on his own, he will literally go insane. And that just shows that they need to be touching, feeling, so they are very tactile animals. And baboons, the biggest group I've seen was probably about 200 of them, and that was in the Okavango Delta in Botswana. But here, the olive baboons, the biggest group of them that we've seen was actually at Talek, where we were staying just next to the river when we were over on the other side of the Mara River, next to the Talek River, and we saw there was probably about 100 of them. But there might be smaller groups in between, and so it can differ, but they are always in sociable groups. You won't find one baboon on his own, and always wonderful to watch their interaction between each other. So while we do that, watch them a little bit longer, and we're going to head down into the plains, but we're going to send you over now to Taylor, who I think has got one of our feathered friends.
The one that you normally hear first in the morning or second in the morning. It is the rufous nape lark, not a very shy bird at all. It does a lot of chatting, in fact, like it is right now. Shall we have a little listen? Isn't that cool? And I love the way it also flaps its wings when it calls every now and then. But they're a very pretty bird. It was one of the first birds that I ever learnt about, that I first ever identified successfully. And off it flies. Now it was just sitting up in a Balanates tree, not eating the fruit though, just using it for a bit of shade. So we've been looking now for these lions. I see there's a car that's all of a sudden stopped and come back. It wasn't there. We drove around and we looked under those shaded trees, but there wasn't anything. But now I'm wondering if they maybe just weren't a little bit further off road, perhaps, and laying in the grass, because there's a couple of clouds ahead, not massive ones, just a few, casting shadows. So I thought it's been hot, but maybe to the lions, they don't think it's been particularly hot at all. So I think we'll go and check out Mr. and Mrs. Hammerkorp. So I'm going to kill all the flies today. I'm just going to be honest with you. So you're going to hear a lot of, and I'm going to try and swat them and hopefully get them successfully. And because I've warned them now. I've already got one. I left it out as a warning. It's not working though. They're not scared of another dead fly. So I think we'll go check out Mr. and Mrs. Hammerkorp, see how they're going, because we only had a quick view of them right at the end of the sunrise safari. And I'm excited that they're back. So we'll do that, and then maybe look for some elephants, and then come back here. We won't be long, maybe an hour or so, and then we'll be back in this area to see what's going on. Hello, yellow-throated longclaw, you fly. No! Typical. Just run into the grass. Come out here. Shh, 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 shh. I don't think that little bird is even going to listen to the stupid noises that I make with my mouth. It's there, you can just see it walking. It's a yellow-throated longclaw. Now Ellie, oh, a big bounce. You wanting to know how many bird calls can I do? Well, I know a lot of bird calls, however, I don't know if I know how to make them all. It's quite difficult, in fact. We often try. We try our absolute best, but some of them are a lot harder than others, unfortunately. And well, that's that. Oh, hang on, sorry, there's a vehicle coming. We'll talk about it again. Never mind. Okay, we'll get it next time. I missed the Masai Mara already. It was so quiet. Hey, Archie? We had the whole Sand River Valley to ourselves. It was so nice. It was so great, barring like one or two other cars. It was really amazing. So my goal is going to be also to drive in spots where no one else is driving. We're going to try that at some point. And everyone should have left though. I think a lot of people have had to start, you know, going back to, not quite going back to work just yet, but getting ready for work, so it should start quietening down soon enough. But anyway, sorry Ellie, so I don't actually know how many bird calls I can make, but maybe we should set a challenge for ourselves. And if Tristan's driving this afternoon, I know Tristan will be keen, he'll be excited to do the bird call challenge. Mr. Henry is always up for things like that. I'm not sure if Steve will be keen. Keen Steve? Oh, it doesn't rhyme. I'm trying to get a nickname for him already. And then Ralph, I feel like Ralph, he's from the Eastern Cape, he'll probably try and do the bird call. So shall we do that? Shall we issue a challenge there? I'll start it off with do you know what I'm going to do? Is I'm going to steal all the Djuma birds, all of them, and do all the easy ones, so that when they have to do a call, have to do one call a segment? I don't know, what's everybody feeling? Hashtags Fire Life. Let me know, yay or nay, if you think it's a stupid idea, or you think it could be quite fun. So I'll do that, I'll issue the challenge, and then Rolf and I will just have to do it for the first little bit until Djuma joins in. Maybe Rolf and I won't do it every segment, because it'll get a bit boring, but every second or third segment. So shall we do the pearl-spotted owlet? Because we know that Tristan or Steve or Noel or James will try and do that one, but if it's taken, can't do the same bird call twice, which will make it a bit tricky. Are you ready? I'm going to catch my breath. Done. Faith, have you ever even heard a pearl-spotted owlet do a call before? That could have been a hardy-da ibis. It isn't hardy-da ibis. They make a terrible noise. So there we go. The other spin that we could put on it, I'm going to need your help, because I think it's important if you give input here. You guys are watching the show, of course. We must make it entertaining for all of you and educational, because it's obviously. And should we make it that we have to issue a bird call to the next presenter, and yet they're allowed to listen to it first before they do it, because you know sometimes you forget what that bird actually sounds like and you need a bit of help. So Faith will let me know once all of you have given your input what you think we should do. So there we go, get chatting, and if you don't put your answers through, then you just have to sit through whatever we decide on. So yeah, so we'll see. Right, so we're going to send it over to Rolf. We'll let him start off with one. He can choose whichever, and then I think every now and then until the Djuma team joins us, then we can start issuing bird calls to make it a little bit interesting. We're going to get nasty, watch. We're going to try and do the really hard ones. I hope Tristan's driving this afternoon. I'm going to find the most difficult bird calls on my phone, and I'm going to make him do those ones. He'll probably do the same back, knowing him. We've got kind of the same sense of humor. Right. Enough about the bird challenge. I'm going to go and find you some birds, Mr. and Mrs. Hammerkorp. Let's go across to Rolf. He's gone off towards the Olololo gate and see what his plans are.
Yes, thanks Taylor, and sorry, but we haven't moved anywhere because we've been totally intrigued by these baboons sitting in front of the wildebeest who seem to be looking on with interest. It's quite comical how they seem to be the peanut gallery there, just seeing what the baboons are doing, maybe thinking, why can't we do that? As he scratches his rear end. And now, I think I'm going to lull the rest of these safari guides into a false sense of security. Now, I'm going to do a very easy bird to start with, and then maybe they'll think that I don't know my birds. So I think I'll do the one that sings Three Blind Mice, like the chin spot Battis that he is. So it's a very easy Three Blind Mice. Very easy, that one. So let's see. I think they're going to think that I don't know my birds, but we'll show them. Right. I think that little baboon with the baby has now disappeared over the horizon. They're near to the zebra. So I think, folks, our plan now is to head down into or near to the marsh, and we'll then see what we can find from there. Manu, it's time to go. Let's leave these baboons and the wildebeest to their own devices. As we come out here and head on down, you can see the lovely view that we do have from up here. And I see already there's a couple of vehicles. Now earlier we found the lions right here in this particular spot, but I'm sure that after the rain has disappeared and the sun has come out, I think it was probably a little bit hot for them, and so they disappeared off to find some shade. And I think that's where Taylor might be trying to find them. Now, Jason, you're wondering if lions attack baboons? Yes, absolutely, they can, and they will. But it's normally, I would say, what I've experienced the most is your younger males that are off on their nomadic experience, becoming men, between them being kicked out of the pride and them establishing their own territory. That's where I've seen them taking on unlikely suspects like baboon. But generally, I would say that they don't really go for them. And what is that just under that tree there? I think it's a warthog under that shepherd's tree. But look at this beautiful vista, everybody. The rain came down last night and it's almost instantaneously gone that lovely green lush color. So it's not as dry and dusty as it was last couple of days, and so we can even drive pretty close behind each other without getting a face full of dust. And it does make a big difference on the roads as you drive around. It's not that dust hanging in the air, so it's very nice. And you'll see also very often as we drive along, you get swallows and martins following us. Now, Parlin, you're wondering if baboons hunt in the Mara? Well, they can do, and even those ones that were just walking through foraging there, they're hunting on a very small basis. I just wanted to stop here. Parlin, we can just look at these lilac-breasted rollers while I answer your question. So they will do, but they're normally just hunting little things like lizards and insects and all of that. But when the resources are low, once more, and they're struggling to find food, even your young impala could fall prey to a baboon. And it's quite weird because they're very often found together, looking after each other, looking out for each other. But when the chips are down, the baboons are a little bit sinister in that they can eat some of the little babies. But it doesn't generally happen. It's only when it's very dire, and it's quite strange to watch because they're not very adept killers. So when they do actually kill something, they don't really put it out of its misery, and they normally open it up and start feeding on it. So not a nice scene to watch. But this is a beautiful scene to watch. Once more, the lilac-breasted roller, national bird of Kenya and Botswana. Now, Mary, I concur. These are very pretty birds. And I've told the story many times that I used a feather of that to ask my wife-to-be to marry me. And I did it via the post, through the old traditional way. And that's how the Afrikaans people and some of the local African tribes used to ask for a lady's hand in marriage. So that's a lovely story. And for such a beautiful bird, they actually make quite a racket. It's a very noisy, grindy sound. And the reason they're called rollers is because the display they show while they're making that sound. And I was wondering if the two of them were trying to partake in a little bit of a dust bathe. And there's a little bit of a call. But at the same time, as we stopped, it seemed they might have been feeding each other. And that could be a male and a female doing their little bit of bonding, feeding each other as mates do. That's very beautiful. Obviously just picking up on little insects and things that are walking around on the road. You can see the tire track there. Now, Wendy, you're wondering how I got the feather to propose to my wife. Well, it was, wow, look at that. That's beautiful. It was actually, and what's he got? He got a little bug. It was actually while I was walking in the northern parts of the Kruger National Park, and I did a very naughty thing because you shouldn't be taking animal parts out of the national park. But as these two are doing in their very loving way, I hid a feather that I found on the floor with the exact intention of doing that. And while I was out on my bush wilderness trails, we were spending 5 days at a time walking in the roadless northern parts of the Kruger, in the Makuleki concession, which I know that a few people have written in and said they know that area. Well, one of my most favorite places in the world, and so I found that feather on the ground, and I put it in my pocket and took it back. And while I was walking, I actually had the idea of doing exactly what I did eventually, because it's when you're walking in the wilderness, you do have all sorts of wonderful thoughts, and your mind wanders, and so a lot of my time was spent thinking of the lovely lass that I was going to propose to. So let's start up and head on. Now, Parlin, you're wondering why I did it by post and not face to face, so that I could avoid rejection. Well, I'm not really someone who is scared of rejection. I've been rejected many times in my life, so I'm quite used to it. And no, that wasn't the reason. The reason was because I was in South Africa and she was all the way in Scotland. So it was a little bit difficult to do it face to face. And at that stage, I hadn't quite worked out how Skype works, and I don't even think Facebook Live was around. So I thought, well, it has to be traditional, and so I sent it off and hoped for the best, and the best, well, it happened. So that's the end of that. Okay, let us now start to search for whatever the bush is going to throw at us. It's always so exciting when we go out. What is going to be in store for us today? I'm sure there will be a lot of elephants down in the marsh, as there always is. Speaking of elephants, lo and behold, there's a few for us to have a look at. They're walking in this area where I've found them quite regularly, heading up towards this forest. And so I think we better stop and have a look. They were nicely washed this morning. So I'm just going to pull in here and stop near to them. It would be rude not to have a look. See how they are tranquilly feeding on this lovely lush grass. I'll just stop there for a quick view. Now, I think we might sit here a little bit and see what these elephants get up to. But let's head you on over to Taylor for a little bit of an update from her side.
Well, you're not going to be surprised. I got distracted again. Can you believe it? I was supposed to be going to the hammerkop nest. However, I decided that, jackals. So we're coming to look for the jackals first. I remember that I haven't even read the poem yet for the jackals that we spent so much time making. So I wanted to come and have a look and see if they're still around. Hopefully they're around, and hopefully they're close by, so that we can have a nice look at them. So I'm doing the equivalent of a Sunday afternoon drive along the beach. Ours is through, of course, the Mara Triangle in Kenya, on a very bumpy road. And not really much sand around it, well, in this area. But hopefully we'll find some jackal at some point. It's so hard to try and find them. That's why I've got to keep looking left to right. Because there's a stretch of about actually it's maybe a little bit long. It could be close to 1 kilometer where they could be anywhere. I've seen them quite far down behind us, and then I've still seen them quite far ahead before. So you have to check extensively. And their coats are still that mottled color. They haven't got the adult coloration just yet, which makes it even more difficult to try and spot them, because that mottled color does blend in with the grass a bit better. So we're trying to have sharp eyes this afternoon in order to find them. I'll stop up ahead because I've got something to show you at some point. Now, Debbie, you're wondering if the jackals have a set territory, and you're wondering if that's the reason why I'm able to find them in the same spot every single time. Yes, it's the adults that have the territory, and they'll mark and defend on. They're monogamous, so they're typically in a pair. The little ones, of course, are still hanging around. They're not quite old enough to go off on their own just yet. They're starting. There's a warthog and some pigs, or some piglets. Hello, guys. Seen any jackal? I have not seen any jackal, but the only thing that I've noticed is that they're starting to sort of roam further and further away from the road. They used to spend a lot of time on the road, but that was because their den was quite close to it. So now they're venturing off. So essentially they'll wander off and never come home again. They just won't come back, which would be quite devastating. Hello, girl, and your little pigs who are very hungry and actually not really keeping up with mom. They're learning to be good warthogs and focusing on eating. There we go. Not realizing that mom's got a little bit too far ahead. Trying to catch up. Only 2 left. Sorry, girl. Whee! Off they run. They're so quick. Now I have something to show you. I've showed it to you. They're funny birds. No. That's not a bird. What's wrong with me? I get so distracted. What I was trying to say is I've got a feather, and then I don't know why I said that those are funny birds. They're not. They're warthogs. I know, I'm sorry. My mind doesn't work properly all the time. So I've got this beautiful feather. I have showed it to you before. It's traveled all the way around the world with me, not on purpose. I keep forgetting that I have it in one of my notebooks. And it is the feather that Rolf is talking about. It is a tail feather. One of the beautiful streamers from a lilac-breasted roller. Sadly, no one proposed to me with it, though. It's just a feather. I'm going to have to move off the road very quickly, though. There's a car coming up behind us. But it's beautiful, though. I thought I'd show you because I didn't think Rolf would have one handy. And I went, I have one. And I haven't brought it out for quite some time. Let me just pull off and let this vehicle pass us. And then we can carry on. So I'm going to put it back, but it's quite nice. I can't believe that it's still in perfect condition, because I feel like it's traveled in so many different places and all over. Well, I think it's even been to America, to be honest. I don't know how I got it in there, and I really didn't do it on purpose. I've had it for such a long time. Maybe not America. I think it's come to Australia with me, though. Definitely been to Australia. Right, let me put that book back there. And now we can continue the jackal search. That was a ranger that just drove past us. Okay, I'm going to scan really hard here because I think these jackal have moved a bit further up this way, and hopefully we're going to find them at some point. And Rolf, however, has beaten me to finding the animal that Archie and I wanted to see today.
Thanks, Taylor. Yeah, like I said, folks, we haven't gone anywhere. We're just enjoying our time a little bit with these elephants. Lovely termite mound in between. And they're making their way up slowly towards that forested area. In the back there, we have seen quite a few impala moving through their normal habitat. A bit more of the wooded and vegetated regions. And every now and then you can hear the gases being released from the elephants, and it's a very bubbly sound. Sometimes you could almost mistaken it for a bubbling casino frog. It does a very bubbly release of the gas. And there a very dexterous use of the trunk. Now, like with the zebra, that are hindgut fermenters, you'll also have the elephants creating a lot of gas in their belly and always seeming bloated. But with that digestive system, they've got a fungus in the stomach. And I know that Taylor, I think, was talking about it the other day, about elephant babies eating their mom's dung. Now, we call that coprophagia, which we would also say with dung beetles. Any of the animals eating dung we call coprophagia, and elephants do it to obtain the spores for the mushroom that assists them in their digestion. So you'll often find animals eating mommy's dung, especially the hindgut fermenters. So elephants, zebra, warthogs, even hippos you can find very regularly eating mommy's dung. So it's not anything strange or weird, it's just instinctively obtaining the spores that assist them in their digestion. So very interesting that. And phagia is the eating of, and copra, meaning that of feces, dung or scat, so excrement. And then we have a few other phagias, the eating of. You get geophagia, which is the eating of earth, which elephants also do quite regularly, especially if they are lacking in mineral or something in their diet. Like I've said, in Botswana, with them having a very real lack of calcium, there's massive points where the elephants go and they're actually literally just eating soil. And it can look very strange. And then we go on to other ones. The one that comes to mind is osteophagia. That's the eating of bones. And that's quite weird when you see a giraffe chewing on a massive bone. And I did have some guests once when I was in Etosha National Park, and this 5-meter giraffe was eating a massive bone, and they were quite perplexed and honestly asked me if they were predators. So I did laugh a little bit and just explained to them why a giraffe would be doing that after I told them that they hunt in packs. But yeah, it was all down to them just wanting and needing that calcium that they get from the bone. And you will also find animals like tortoises that will feed on very fresh lion scat. It looks quite strange in the winter morning when it's steaming and you've got a tortoise eating scat. Now, Kate, you're wondering if there's a particular role or function of an elephant's tusks, if it's used for defense or attracting a mate. Well, it is used in defense and in fighting with other males. You'll very often find when two dominant males or big males in their prime, when they start to fight, they will land a killer blow with one of their tusks, piercing the other one, and they can do that many times until the loser actually succumbs to his wounds. And so they use it between each other. They will push each other around with their tusks. And another way that they use them for is just what I was talking about. When they want to eat the earth and they've got a lack in their diet, they'll push their tusks into the ground and then loosen up the soil and maybe kick it with their foot and get the soil then with their tusks. So they can use it like a spade. I've also seen them using it in the Namib desert when they are trying to dig in quite hard soil where they know that there's water. So they'll push with their tusk like a pick, and then they use their feet as well. Another way that they use them is they wedge it in the bark of a tree, and like your knobthorn trees, which they very much like in winter months, especially in the Djuma area. They'll wedge it into the bark, and then they'll strip the bark off once they've pried it away from the inner bark. So very interesting there. Now, we are going to move on from here, but before we do, I just want to do my second bird of the afternoon, and here it is. That is the Cape Turtle Dove, or the ringneck dove, I think is the new name. It's gone backwards and forwards. There's my second bird. Right, so we're going to send you on over to Taylor, who's got some giraffe, while we head on down the road and see what else we can find.
Well, we do have a giraffe just standing here, enjoying the sun. Actually, it was eating, and then it stopped eating. And then I reversed and revved the car a little bit too much, so it gave us a dirty look. But now it's back on the move again. Although I don't know if we're going to be able to turn all the way around to get it. Unfortunately, we're about to lose that tall giraffe. And this is going to be fun trying to get out of this little thing I've got ourselves in. Oh, that wasn't too bad. Go Taylor. Like I said, this drive is going to be filled with positive reinforcement. Let's see what else we can get though. We're going to head into the marsh, which could be a little bit on the tricky side. Maybe we get to see a kingfisher here, seeing as we've had much luck. I also heard some birds alarming, so I wonder if there was a snake somewhere. It sounded like from down in there, the way you're looking, but nothing, I'm afraid. No kingfishers here, surprisingly. That'll be something else we will do. We're going to head in that direction and then pop out on the main river road to see if that malachite kingfisher is around again. Wouldn't that be nice to have two views of it in one day? I haven't even had a chance to have a look at those pictures just yet. We'll get there at some point. So Ralph has done quite a few calls. He's done chin spot baddest and he's done turtle dove now. What else can I do? As we said we were going to do all the easy ones, so it's just difficult when Djuma joins. Should I do a hidey-da? No, trumpeter hornbill. Wah! 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 Sounds something like a baby crying. I don't know if that really sounded like a baby crying, but there's a trumpeter hornbill for you. And actually, Ralph, this needs to be passed on to Ralph, please, Madam Faith. Did you tell him that we must get all the easy ones out of the way so that there's only the tricky ones left? Ralph's got to be on our side. It'll be a lot quicker to get them done if there's two of us doing the easy ones. Help me remember what the easiest bird calls are, or the ones that we do the most. I haven't done a bird call in a long time, or other than right now. So you can hashtag Safari Live, give us a helping hand, and thank you also. I believe most of you have decided that we should issue each other with calls. So we won't start just yet. We'll let the drive carry on a little bit. We're just warming up and practicing now. Oh my goodness. Debbie, you're wondering what is the most complex bird call I've ever heard? Let me think about that one. There are some elephants up ahead, which is great because it's one of the things we said we want to see. So we'll get to my favorite forest where I normally check where my favorite lions are. The most complex bird call. Chugras are pretty cool, the way that they sing. Maybe one of the robins or robin chats, something like that. They've got quite elaborate calls. What about brown scrub robin? We'll play it now. We'll get to the elephants and then we'll go through a couple of my favorites. Even orange-breasted bushshrike, which I think Steve saw this morning or yesterday morning, and I'm sure he would have done that. That call's an easy one too, orange-breasted bushshrike. So we'll see. It's quite good. But yeah, I think it's going to be maybe one of the robins. And we'll go through a couple. You know what? It'll be the ones that mimic a chorister robin. Chorister robin chat, sorry. Is it a chorister robin chat? I've forgotten. I haven't seen one in years. Last time I saw one was in the Eastern Cape. Let me get these elephants for you very quickly, and then I shall open my bird app and we'll have a look. And then I'll also play you some of those calls, and then you can decide what you think is the most elaborate one. But I think it's going to be that, and I'll explain to you in a minute. Let's just look for it. Let me open my bird app. I don't understand when I want to search. What is the point of this app? Robin. Let me go to ours. I have to search it like that. I can't just type it in. There we go. Chorister robin chat. So listen to this call. Let me put my phone on airplane mode, otherwise you'll hear all the email beeps. It's a beautiful call, and they're mimickers. They mimic lots of other birds. Isn't that beautiful? There you go. It's mimicking a dark-capped bulbul now. So they're incredible, the chorister robin chats. I've heard them mimicking fiery-necked nightjars, African fish eagles, a variety of cuckoo species. They are amazing birds, and I bet Ralph has got some stories to tell you about the chorister robins. They're beautiful birds. We shall look at some pictures a little bit later, but seeing as though we've got some elephants and we're not going to see a chorister robin chat right here, we might as well chat about these beautiful creatures. It seems as though they've beaten us to a mud bath, though, all that crusty bits and pieces on this Ellie cow's back. And even when she swatted her tail against her body to chase those flies, you saw a bit of dust too. So obviously the hot weather has helped dry that mud. It's made it beautiful. Look at that. It almost looks like crocodile skin now, don't you think? But it's not. Of course, we're still looking at an elephant. But that is so, so important. And I bet she's not worrying too much about the flies. She's probably having a better time than what I am, because I'm being absolutely harassed. And so is Archie, because every now and then it sounds like he's tap dancing in the back of the car. And he's not. He's just tapping his legs to try and shoo the flies off of them, as he's got to use both hands to use the camera, of course. Ah, it's this cow. I didn't even see that. Sorry, I've got a bit of glare on my monitor. Now, Tom, you're wondering, why is that elephant cow's tusk tucked underneath her trunk? Wow, there we go. Try and say that 10 times over. I'm not going to try and do that live. That could be disastrous. So it's just the way that it's grown. So it's all got to do with genetics. Unfortunately, that one did not get the instructions to point to the sky. But that's okay, or point to the ground, either way. It hasn't affected her at all. She's quite lucky. Often you see animals with horns and sometimes with tusks growing back into their bodies. And I've seen a picture of a kudu and recently one of an impala where... it's actually quite common, where their horns grew back into their heads and ended up killing them in the end, which is quite hectic if you think about it. I mean, it's a very slow, painful death. But we've seen this elephant cow on a number of different occasions. I mean, obviously it's common to see tusks growing in all sorts of directions, but the way that this particular one has grown is quite unique. I don't think we'll find two of a kind out here. They're probably, maybe, but I mean, I don't think it's a different elephant that we're seeing. I think it's the same female. So that's really nice to actually see. We get to see her often. Now, unfortunately, she can't use her tusks like she's supposed to. And Rolf was just telling you about what tusks' function are in comparison to normal teeth. So she's kind of inhibited. She's only got the one digging tool now. However, she's lucky. She's living in the Mara Triangle in the Masai Mara National Reserve, and perhaps sometimes she wanders down to the Serengeti for a summer holiday. However, they're predominantly grazers up here. Yes, this morning I was telling you about how the elephants were eating all the leaves around camp and around the tent. You see, even when I'm not on camera, I still use my hands. It's so bad. And with them breaking the branches, that'll be fine. But if she wanted to try and dig, she might have a little bit of problem stripping bark. She's going to have to be left tusk dominant rather than right tusk dominant. But again, it doesn't really affect her because there is so much grass out here. We even see elephants in Djuma with one or no tusks. You've got no tusks, it can become a little bit on the tricky side. But let's carry on. They're moving off into an area that we can't follow them, unfortunately. But we are edging closer and closer towards the marsh, which is making me nervous, because Rolf might be handing that marshmallow badge straight back over this afternoon. Wouldn't that be hilarious? I really don't want to get stuck anymore. I'm over it. At least I'm adventurous though, and I'm not afraid of trying new things, even though I think, maybe I can do it, maybe I can't. We'll just go with it. So we'll go down there. We've had so much rain. I don't know how much rain this side of the reserve has had, but up top on the escarpment, my goodness, it was wet. And I believe there was also a big storm this side quite in the early hours of the morning. So it obviously came from all different directions and joined and made one big storm. So the marsh is going to be quite wet, which I'm not looking forward to. So I think I'm going to stick on the outskirts. I don't think I'm going to go sort of straight through the middle. And maybe you'll just watch from the outside and start heading back in the direction of where we left that malachite kingfisher this morning. Maybe the black herons will be around. Right, it seems as though elephants are the trend this afternoon. Very nice. Hopefully the trend will be some lions or cheetah or leopards a bit later. Let's jump back on board to Rolf. He's still with the big pachyderms.
Thanks, Tyler, and what a wonderful little scene this is. A little youngster having a drink from its mommy. A very young one here, probably only a couple of months old. I don't think much more than that. So it's a lovely elephant start to the afternoon. And there you can see a little bit of shadows now coming through building some clouds once more. But these elephants were quite hot, and we have seen them passing by little pools and spraying water behind their ears. And that obviously assists in that whole radiator type cooling mechanism that they have, running all the blood through their ears, and so as they flap it, very easily cooling themselves. There's a lot more flapping going on this afternoon than there was this morning. All the ears seem to be stationary, with it being very cool. But there you see, lots of movement, lots of flapping, forward, backwards, get the air flow over the blood. A couple of little babies around. Wonderful. Now, Scarlett, you're wondering how far elephants can see, and obviously wanting to know how good their vision is. Well, it's almost identical to that of humans. So, as far as you can see, they can see. And that's the scientists that have told us that. Very, very similar to that of humans. So nice to think that we can see like elephants, and that's why we often get intrigued by their eyesight and their eyes. Beautiful eyes they have. Very long eyelashes as well. Obviously assists in keeping all the muck that they do pass through, and they're walking through a lot of the long grass, and it does assist in protecting their eyes. But we have seen also recently a lot of the white in the inside of the eye forming, building up. And I liked what Taylor said. She said it's almost like sleep. Well, exactly. All the dirt and grit and grime gets centered in the inside of the eye, and also especially around when you've got flowering plants that the elephants are moving through. There's a lot of nectar and pollen in the air, and then it obviously does make them water as this little youngster lies down. Wow, that's very precious, that. Looking through the red oat grass with a nice green tinge in the back. Lots of rainfall now. Everybody's quite happy. Now, Wendy, you're wondering if the long grass affects the little baby's ability to walk. Not really, because they are, even though they look small in comparison to mommy, they are still a decent size, and even the smaller animals don't really have a problem. So it's only grass, and it just moves out the way as they press through it and on it and step all as they go. There's not really a problem at all. And if it was a problem, I'm sure mommy would sort it out or take her into an area where it was easier. And that is quite relevant when I've seen the desert elephants of Namibia. When it rains a lot, they actually move away from the rivers because the rivers start flowing. So we say rivers in Namibia, but generally they're just dry river beds, and they only flow after the rains come. So they're ephemeral, and they also flow below the surface of the soil. But when the big rains come and they actually flow, the mothers and the breeding herds move away from the rivers because the babies very easily get stuck in the mud. So the mummies very cleverly take the herds away and they head up into the higher lands. So elephants have a lot more intelligence than we know about, and they do pass on their knowledge to the younger generation. But continuing with this elephant afternoon, I think we're going to head on down the road, probably find some more elephants to show you. But in the meantime, let's head you on over to Taylor, who's going to do exactly that.
This time we didn't miss the mud wallow. I was saying to you how the elephant cow had beaten us to it and her mud had already dried up. However, we've got some freshly painted elephants at the moment, and it's all the youngsters playing around. The one on the right is being a bit of a bully, or at least trying to push the older siblings around. But that's not going to be a fair fight, I'm afraid. You're not strong enough. But I'm going to now jump up on top of you, and then I am the same height. Isn't that precious? And it's just amazing how they all tolerate one another. Let's see, they might even gang up on this little one and push it around, but I feel like it'll be able to hold its own, and they often push and shove like this. It's all normal. It's good for muscle development. It's kind of like wrestling, isn't it? Not that elephants have to worry about hunting. We always say how lions will play with one another and practice their stealth mode stalking skills. However, that's not the case here. This one is pretending to be a circus elephant. But in the wild, which is 150 times million times better, I think. There we go. They're not really doing a great job of covering themselves with mud. Even those older ones haven't quite got the idea just yet. But sort of. I think they might have just had a bit of fun sliding around in it when they were pushing one another. Perhaps that was the encouragement, because they succeeded in getting their feet muddy. And, well, I suppose it would be a nice spot behind your ears to cool yourself down. It's like the equivalent of us taking a face towel, dipping it in cold water and a bit of ice and popping it on your forehead, I would imagine. Throwing water behind your ears and mud behind your ears to cool yourself down that way. We know that they flap their ears to try and cool themselves down. But on a day like today, I think a number of techniques would be needed. Now, there's another little elephant just off to the left. So our dreams could come true today. We've only been asking since last year. We want to see a little elephant chasing cattle egrets. Well, possibly, because it's about to stumble across one right now. It's within trunk distance from that one, just off to the right. There we go. You can see its white little body. It doesn't seem to be too interested in that cattle egret just yet. I suppose you need to be in the right mood, a playful mood. Now, Christine, are you wondering if the elephants ever run into snakes like cobras or the mambas in the long grass? Potentially. You know, I think these elephants, if anything, would come across a lot of pythons. Oh, that one's just going to go down and get my face right into it. It's hard using my trunk, so I'm just going to bite the grass rather. Shame. So yeah, I think if anything, they'd be bumping into a lot of pythons. The pythons love the marshy areas, and they can conceal themselves, and also they can keep themselves nice and cool. They do a lot of hunting in the marsh, and it's actually the only place I've seen a python so far. However, they have been sighted all over, but they love being just near these luggers. Look, there's another elephant in a different scene. That's where we need to cross. In fact, just off to the right, an elephant's having a bit of a play in water. Now, they'll probably trumpet and move around the snake. I don't think they would go and investigate around it. Maybe a young, curious elephant. But they would definitely be wary of it. You'd be surprised. They're very clever animals. And there's also 2 black-headed herons, those birds that are just preening themselves, in case you were wondering what they were. And quite a few of them around here in the marsh too. And it's kind of like a mirror. It almost looks like they're doing exactly the same thing. Just getting rid of all those old bits of fluff that are no longer needed. And not hunting for a change, surprisingly. There's a few dragonflies. It's all happening down here at the marsh, as it has been for the last few weeks. Even a spur-winged geese just coming into frame now too. Are you going to have a drink? Colin, you're wondering if the elephants ever swim in the Mara River? Most certainly. And they absolutely love water. We obviously see them swimming quite a bit at Chitwa Dam and Treehouse Dam when there's enough water, even at Vuyatela Dam, but I'd imagine that it'd be quite dry. So yes, they do. However, they often cross it. So what I've noticed now is there seem to be herds that go across into the Masai Mara National Reserve, where we just came back from today, in fact, well, this morning. And then every afternoon they come back. So they cross it twice. They cross it going there, and then they cross it coming back. If they can, they will choose spots that are easy to cross, especially if there's young elephants in the herd. You might find that they'll choose a shallower area, maybe a bit more rocks, easy for that little calf to cross. And we've been seeing that they haven't been covered in too much water. But now, after all the rain, the river's going to be up again, so they are going to have to cross those deep spots. And then I've had quite a few sightings, actually, a cul-de-sac during the day, just very quickly if I've gone to help clean river cameras and things, where elephant bulls have been swimming around where there's a pod of hippos that like to lay in the corner. And I've seen them swimming around in there too. So yeah, they will do. There aren't too many dams out here, so they make use of these luggers, the ones that they're approaching now. They're all topped up with water, and they actually get quite deep. So the elephants will utilize them. The hippos are probably using them the most because they're actually spending all day in them, and it's quite nice for them to get away from the hustle and bustle of the busy Mara River. Lots of hippos and crocs there, so if you want a bit of a break, that's a good spot to just come and have a wallow and a lugger all to yourself. Buffalo will go in every now and then. Of course, terrapins and frogs. You'll find herons wading away, searching for things, greater egrets. So these luggers are actually very important with a combination, of course, the marsh. So you've got lots and lots of water. Well, I suppose this entire area is waterlogged at the moment, from the marsh being quite saturated, and then, like I said, those luggers being filled right to the top. So it's an ideal spot at the moment. I think this little one's quite hot because it keeps standing underneath Mom and keeping in the shade. Now you're going around, just investigating. Perhaps it's feeling a little bit brave now, wants to go play with the rest of the elephants. Now, Kate, you're wondering if the elephants ever roughhouse or bully with the younger elephants? Will the mother ever intervene? Most certainly, if she feels, and again, it goes down to an individual. Some elephants are more protective over their youngster than others. Others are a little bit sort of free-spirited and let them learn and do their own thing. But I've seen it many, many different times where a female will intervene and actually come in and chase off, say, some bigger bulls or some other elephant calves, and if they get a little bit too rough. So it does happen. We've actually seen it live a few times where a mother has had to come in and reprimand a group of youngsters. And I suppose it's just like anything, they get out of hand. Perhaps these females get a bit embarrassed when their children get a bit rowdy and have to calm them down. They are at a restaurant. They're eating here. I just love watching these cattle egrets. Amazing birds. I haven't seen one catching a frog yet. So the only time I've ever seen them catching any, not these birds, but the birds that like to move around in the marsh, is the black-headed heron, and I caught a snake doing a Nat Geo rehearsal when we did Big Cat Week. But and then that's it. Since being up in the Mara, I haven't really seen anyone else eating any snakes. I don't even actually know what snake it was. It was green, so it might have just been a spotted bush snake or something along those lines. I don't think it would have been particularly venomous, but they're hard at work, the egrets, the herons, constantly on the go, constantly searching for something to eat. And quite a few insects making a bit of noise too. Right, we're going to try and move through this elephant herd to head towards the river road. Let's go across to Ralph and see if he's managed to find anything wonderful.
Thanks, Taylor. Well, we haven't found anything just yet, but we're heading down towards where the black rhino like to hang out, or where I've seen them at least. And let's try not get stuck. I've already got the badge. And while we do that, looking through these thickets here, and Manu's my eagle eyes at the back, I want to share a little story of elephants with you as well. A nice funny story of when I had some guests in Namibia once more. I have not only guided in Namibia, in a few other countries as well, but I spent a lot of time in that northwestern section of the driest desert in the world. So if you want to know dry, go to Namibia. And the name suggests that Namibia means the big place of barrenness, but it could be nothing different, or the name is very different to what it is exactly, because there's actually a lot of life in the desert. And like I've spoken of, the desert elephants, very special up there. And in Kruger, the very northwestern corner of Namibia, the wildest part of that country, I used to frequent that area quite a lot, and I took some guests there regularly. But the one group of guests I had, we in an area called Puros, which is on the Huaruseb River, and we were doing a camping safari, of course, so we take all our gear with us, and there's lovely bush showers and toilets, very rudimentary, so very it's pit toilets and a very simple donkey shower. If none of you know what a donkey shower is, it's literally an old gas bottle that they use to put a fire underneath, and that then gives you hot water for the shower. But it is an amazing system, brilliant, because within 15 minutes you have hot water. Anyway, we arrived at this camp next to the Huaruseb River, and we set out camp, and it had been a long couple of days driving and in the dust and everything. So around lunchtime, while I was setting up lunch and getting the food on the go, the ladies went for a shower, as they do. They like to clean themselves up, while the men were looking for birds and so on. But the one particular lady went for a shower in one of the cubicles. It's merely a reed enclosure with the shower sticking out from the tree. It's beautiful. But while she was doing that, and I think I was cutting onions or something for salad, I heard an almighty scream, and obviously I came running out to see what the matter was, to look after my guests and ready to take on a lion. But she was in the process of trying to cover herself up, and I was, what's wrong, what's wrong? And she said, elephant, elephant. And I was like, where? And she said, she was actually French. She said, à la douche, à la douche. And so I looked over at the shower, and there was an elephant next to her cubicle, and what had happened was she had turned the water on and having a lovely cold shower because it was so hot, and at a moment the shower or the water stopped, and so she looked up to see why the water had stopped, and lo and behold, an elephant was standing next to the cubicle sucking the water out of the tap or the shower head. And so she obviously grabbed her towel, luckily, on her way out. But yes, it was quite a comical story, and she was obviously quite scared. But the elephant just wanted a little bit of water and had his drink, and off he went, leaving the shower running on its own. Needless to say that the lady was quite scared to go for a shower after that, so she did need to have her husband escort her. But that was one little funny incident around elephants that I thought I'd share with you. I wonder where these black rhino are. Right, we're going to keep on going and looking in those thickets and see if we can find these lions around here. We have often found them here, but we're going to carry on doing that, carry on searching and looking. But while we do that, let's send you on over to Taylor. She's got one of our feathered friends again.
I do, and it's one that I've been trying to put on camera for ages. It's the black-winged stilt with its bright red legs. I don't know why they didn't call it the red-legged stilt. Perhaps there's one already called that. But it's a beautiful bird. They've got such a lovely long beak. And I was telling you the other day that they've got the longest legs relative to their body size of any bird, which I think is pretty spectacular. Now, I'm trying to work out exactly how tall a black-winged stilt is. Just by looking at it, I'm going to guess. Let me go. Oh, you still got it perfect. That's amazing that you're a little bit higher than me, that you can still see it, because I can't see that bird anymore. So I would say it's maybe between, I don't know, maybe 40 centimeters, 45 centimeters, and I feel like 2/3 of that is actually just legs. Pretty amazing. And that's an elephant trunk now that you can see blocking the view. Oh, how cool is that? Natural framing. It's always amazing when you can get something like that. So they're feeding on little insects on the surface of the water. The elephants are feeding on grass at the moment. So two different things. And maybe even as these elephants move around, I wonder if it would flush the insects away just like they do in the grass. And then would be able to benefit and catch them quite easily. Gina, you said they look like a supermodel. I suppose they are very much like a supermodel, hey? Isn't that cool? That an elephant is blocking your view of the black-winged stilt, but it's fine, we'll just look at it through the elephant's legs. That is pretty spectacular, and it is a very still day. The water is like glass. That's the most amazing reflection. They're lovely birds. There was another one here, but it's unfortunately flown away, and I was surprised because I thought, well, when one normally flies, the others follow shortly after. So we got lucky here. I don't know for how long now I've been trying to show you one of these in the Mara. I never seem to get it right. That is amazing, Archie. Very creative. Very, very cool. I'm kind of envious. That'd make a great photo through the front legs there. And the elephants are very relaxed with us. It's quite nice. This is a lovely herd. They're not bothered at all. They're fairly close to the car. And they're kind of just feeding in our direction now. So we've seen elephants with 2 tusks. We've seen elephant today with a tusk that curved underneath her trunk. And now we've got an elephant with no tusks. Amazing. The variety that you can see out here. And again, that all just boils down to genetics. It doesn't look like she's got any. It doesn't look like they've been broken off. I just don't think she developed them at all, which is quite normal. You see that down in the Eastern Cape. Plenty. Most of the elephants, female elephants, don't have a lot of tusks. It's all just a genetic mutation. And I think that the little elephant has got tusks. Can you see how the calf's skin is just starting to move away to the side of its trunk, whereas that girl's trunk is fairly flat. But when that little one comes around again, you'll see just how the skin folds are pushing out to the side. So that makes me think that there are tusks coming through there. Normally they pass those genetics down to females. Maybe this is a little boy. Okay, so we'll have a look. Hello, big girl. Would you like me to move? Are you quite happy with me sitting here? She's very close. Careful, watch your step. Careful, could be slippery. Oi, there it is slippery. You don't want to slide. I would have fallen over. There we go. Hello, little one. Yeah, tusks are just coming through. Pisces, Bobby, you said she's beautiful. Without the tusks, she is. She's a lovely girl. But let's listen to these elephants as they slope up the water and splash about in this lugger. I'm trying not to breathe too loudly. Well, the other sound is not an elephant slurping up water, that's for sure. That's coming from the other end. Actually, I'll play another clip for you in a little bit. On my last night's event. So not only did we get an elephant strumming the guy rope strings as if it was playing a guitar, I also managed to record an elephant as it passed wind at that exact moment, which was quite funny. I had a good chuckle about that. I thought it was great timing. Very relaxed. Did sound like there was a trumpet coming from the distance. That's not from our elephants. Our elephants are calm. Oh my goodness, Archie. That one slid down. Oh, this is hysterical. What on earth has happened here? I think this little elephant has thought it would try out the slippery slide. Doesn't look like there's enough soap, though. Not quite sliding enough. It would be funny, though, if it slipped all the way and went bloop into the lugger, into the water. But it's not also using this moment to graze, seeing as though it's a lot closer to the ground. It's probably a bit easier for this little Ellie. He's still learning how to use his trunk. Still got a long way to go. And a yellow-billed stork as well, woolly-necked stork. The birds around here are plenty. They are so wonderful to see such a variety. For all those keen birders out here, I highly recommend coming to the Mara Triangle, the Masai Mara Reserve. You would fall in love with the marshy areas. You wouldn't want to drive anywhere else. It's spectacular, but the birding is so diverse, from the forests to the open grasslands, to the croton thickets. It's pretty spectacular. Up on the escarpment, on the rocks, you get a variety of different things. Look how muddy your feet are. Just sliding into its meal. Ooh. Mary, now, you've asked, if this little elephant were to get stuck in the mud, would I help it? It's a hard one. Of course I'd want to help it. You know what? I would probably inform the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. because they have a mobile veterinary clinic out here. So I think I would inform them to let them know and let them handle the situation. However, we wouldn't be able to go in and throw a rope around it and try and pull it out. It's quite a procedure to get an animal that's stuck in the mud. I saw that there was a rhino, a young male, that was stuck in the mud at Sabi on their traverse, and apparently it was injured by another big bull. They later found out. Anyways, they made the decision to help it. Of course, rhinos are an endangered species, and I think I'd probably want to help an elephant, most certainly. But of course, you got to think about these things. We as humans want to interfere all the time, but I suppose we as humans also kill a lot of elephants, which is very sad. So I think I'd give them a helping hand for all the trouble that we have caused these beautiful creatures by wanting to take their ivory that we've been talking a lot about today. So yes, but I wouldn't be able to do it. I definitely want to be a part of something like that, though, an animal rescuing. But remember, even though something like that is so traumatic, not just for that little elephant, it would be so traumatic for the entire herd, because obviously the whole herd would run and rush in. You might find that the herd would be able to pull them out, because they'll come in and try and help. So hopefully, if something were to get stuck, it would just be something basic, not completely unable to move, and then humans having to interfere. So I hope that doesn't happen. So keep out of that mud, little elephant. And kind of chase that egret away. Mac and Weezer, you said that this little elephant is making your day. Are all elephants, all shapes and sizes and ages, I'm ecstatic about. They're such amazing creatures to sit and watch, and it's very easy to see why people fall in love with them. And a lot of guides will say that elephants are their favorite animals. And it's very, very easy to see why. Of course, they just exhibit so many human emotions. You can relate to elephants, and they're always so calm and peaceful. Well, most of the time. It's quite terrifying coming across an elephant that's very unhappy and not having the greatest day. That is not fun, and that is something that, well, what we normally do is we find elephants that are unhappy, because it is so uncommon, especially in the areas that we're fortunate to guide in. We tend to just leave them alone and come back when they're having a better day. They also have bad days too. You don't know what's happened in their lives. Right. We're going to go and look for that malachite kingfisher now. I promise we are. I'm going to send you to Ralph, but this time I'm going to issue him with a bird challenge, and I would like it, Ralph, if you could please do a woodland kingfisher call.
That's too far. Yes, folks, I will do a woodlands kingfisher call, but we're just trying to identify there in the middle of your screen. It's very far, and I don't know if it's a Kangoni or if it's lions, but my gut feel is that it might be lions. So I think we're going to start up and head in that direction, but it could quite easily be a gazelle or a Kangoni. It's just very far to see. It's the right color, but it's moving around a little bit, so maybe it's not a lion. But all the same, let's start up and head on over there. Now, you want me to do a woodlands kingfisher. That I can't whistle it because it's almost impossible. But it does do a chit often at the end. So and another one, I'm going to actually nail a few here so that it's done and dusted. Another one that I like to do is the black-collared barbet, who we also say does the two-puddly. So very easy. He either does a black-collared, 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 black-collared. Remember singing in duet, male and female singing together. So the one does the black and the other one does the collared. Or we say two-puddly, 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 two-puddly. That's almost a tongue twister there. But one of my all-time favorite birds and we'll see if any of the viewers know that bird in particular. And if you do want to know how it calls, please go and look it up and listen to its call. But once we finish work in the afternoons, that's especially when I like that bird to call, because he sings, "Come drink your beer, come drink your beer, come drink your beer, come drink your beer." The Shelley's Franklin, one of my all-time favorite birds. What else? What other birds? Let's think. The brown scrub robin. He's got a very elaborate call. There's all sorts that goes on in the brown scrub robin call, but the one little part that I really like is when he gets on with the good, the bad and the ugly, because he goes... He doesn't do the second part, however, which is... I can't get it high enough. He does the first part of the good, the bad and the ugly. So we're racing on over, seeing if that are indeed lions. But while we're going along, now Billy, who is aged 5, thanks for sending in your question, Billy. You're wondering, if I could be a bird for a day, which bird would it be and why? Now Billy, I want to think about this because I want to get it perfectly right. I think if I had to choose right now, if I wanted to be a bird, I think it would be an African fish eagle, because he's got the most iconic bird call of all the African birds, and he is also a fisherman, which I love doing as well. So right now, if I had to call it, African fish eagle. That's my one, Billy. I hope you like that bird. Go and have a look what an African fish eagle looks like, and the call is very beautiful. It does, I'm going to try it now, but I'm not the best at it, but it does something like... something like that. All right? Thanks, Taylor. We're mixing in all the bird calls. What's that up in the tree there? Speaking of birds, and that might be, and I know I'm stopping now, just near to where we thought those lions were, but we do have a lovely bird in the tree there, and that is a vulture. It seems like he's probably fed on something and got his head and everything all full of blood and guts, and then they go down to the river and wash themselves. Yes, I do think he's definitely fed, and as a result he's gone to go and clean himself. He does look like he's got a very big gizzard there. So maybe these lions are indeed in the area, and I'm hoping that that's what we spotted off in the distance. That looks like a white-backed vulture, but I can't see perfectly from here, but I think it is. Right, I think we need to continue. Manu, the signs are all there that there's lions around. Now Linda, you're wondering if vultures mate for life. That's a very good question, Linda. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think so. I think they are a little bit more polygamous, but I could be very wrong. I'm not quite sure on that, Linda. Good question, and something I need to go and check up on, because I'm actually not that well clued up on vultures and their pairing. Now, I think we've gone on a wild goose chase here, because I think those in front of us are indeed gazelle. But there's vultures around, so maybe there is still these lions in the area. There's a Kangoni, which often looks like a lion from a distance, and so do these gazelle, just if you see the top of them. But my suspicions were correct. It was moving around too much, because a lion in this heat, my thoughts are they're going to be lying in the shade, doing what lions do best, sleeping. But we got to keep on looking out, and when they are sleeping you need to look under the trees in the shade and try and spot any little mound. That's why we stopped quite often, and actually when we were over on the other side of the river, we got thrown off so many times. Oh, look there. I'm sorry, they're running off. But there's a whole band of banded mongoose with one little straggler at the back. He's obviously Johnny No Mates, or bringing up the rear. Oh, there, and he's just making sure that we're not following, standing up in typical mongoose fashion. And they're all off. Daytime active. These guys sleep at night. So they'll go into normally a termite mound, lovely burrow, and go in and take their leave and their rest. And it's very interesting to note that not only the dwarf mongoose, but also the banded mongoose do sometimes get followed by hornbills, who like to then swoop down as the mongoose forage and catch the insects that they bump up. A very nice relationship that hornbills have with mongoose, and so much so that mongoose, they quite regularly, especially in winter, they do like to get up quite late when it's quite cold in the morning, and so the hornbills, who get quite hungry quite early in the morning, they can actually go towards the mongoose and harass them to get up. Now, what do we have here? I've just spotted that. Who's that going in there? Obviously one of these cavity nesting birds. We'll wait till he comes out. That looks like wood-boring beetle larvae that have made all those little holes in the area, and the woodpeckers often go and knock around those. They normally get the bark off, and then they spot those holes. It looks like a honey guide. It looks like one, but I need to be sure. If it is a honey guide, he could well indeed be looking to parasitize one of the nests. Because if you didn't know, honey guides are brood parasites, and so they do go in. It looked like it could have been either a lesser or a greater honey guide. Now, what is that? I'm not 100% sure. Gone down into the grass. That's a shepherd's tree that he's been going in and around. They also call them witgat in Afrikaans, which means white hole, because they very often have these cavities, and then they do fill with water. And obviously the old transport riders and the Khoisan or the Bushmen, they used to often target these trees if they needed to find water in those dire times when it was very dry, or they'd been walking through the bush for a long time. Now, very interesting with honey guides that now I'm just going to try and get in here a little bit closer while I try to answer your question. Just get the roof. Sorry, Manu. I just go back a bit. Dave, now you're wondering if you want to get into birding, what advice can I give you? Well, Dave, the first thing to do, as Manu tries to locate that hornbill there, yep, the flying banana, and we can see his lovely banana-shaped bill. Dave, the first thing you need to do is get yourself a decent pair of binoculars. Now, if you're just starting out, don't go and get yourself the most expensive pair of binoculars that you can find, because you do need to be able to bump it around and you know, get used to it and learn how to use them efficiently. So get yourself a half decent pair, but I would say a mid-range sort of budget. And so that is the most important piece of equipment that you can get as a birder, because as soon as you stop, you want to then zoom in with your binos, your binoculars, and see all the detail on the birds. The first thing that you want to look at, it's the same with all the animals and the trees, but for me it's very important with birds and trees. We talk about the giss, which is G-I-S-S, the giss of the bird or the tree, which is the general impression of shape and size. Now, the general impression of shape and size of a hornbill, it leads you to believe that it's a medium-sized bird with a very big bill and a very particular flight pattern. So that's one of the things that we will look at with him. And it's the same with the trees. You'll also look at the general impression of shape and size, and that's immediately going to put you into a particular group of birds. So, David, the first thing you do if you want to be a birder, you get a pair of binoculars. The second thing you do is get yourself a relevant bird book for whichever area you're going to be in. So if you're coming to Africa, get an African bird book. If you're doing it in Britain, get a British bird book. America, the same thing. But the rules remain the same. Obviously, there are no rules with birding, but what you want to look for is maintained throughout the birds of the world. So you want to look at that general impression of shape and size, and then you normally want to jump into the back of your bird book, which gives you a very good impression of the shape and size of the particular bird. Was he in water? No, well, then he's obviously going to be one of your wading birds. And was it freshwater or marine? That's a very easy distinguishing characteristic to make. So very simple. You're going to be going to your wading birds. Then was he terrestrial, walking on the ground, or was he flying in the sky? So very simple there, putting you to a particular grouping of bird once again. And then you want to look at the shape of the bill. Very, very important with birds, because it tends to lead you towards knowing what they feed on. Because if it's a tiny little small spiky bill such as that one, it's normally around insects. So it's reasonably large in terms of the head, and it keeps a little insect away from the eye. But when it starts to be a little bit more stubby or thick bill, like and potentially bigger insects, lizards, etc. So quite impressive there. Then you could go across to the seed eaters. Very short, stubby, strong bill. And so it goes on. So looking at the bill, very important. Looking at the tail, very important. And looking at all the different colors, etc. So first and foremost, general impression of shape and size. What was the habitat? What is the bill shape? What are the colors? And then something very important, like I've just heard now, I wasn't even sure what hornbill that was because it was a silhouette, but he's just called, so I know that it's a grey hornbill. So a very good way to identify birds there. And another one is obviously the distribution. Where do you find those birds? Because if you're sitting in an area and you're deciding between 3 different birds, well, just look at where they occur. Maybe 2 of them don't even occur here. So you're down to the 1. It's very difficult. Sometimes when you look at the little brown birds, very difficult, because some of them all look exactly the same. So nice to know then the different calls, and you can then distinguish between all the different testiculars and the very small little brown jobs that we call them, hopping around through the thickets. So folks, I'm still going to continue and see if we can find these lions, but while we do that, once again we're going to send you 1,600 miles to the south, and I think Steve can't wait to say hello.
Good afternoon and welcome. Parkway Elementary from Malibu, how are we doing? Welcome to the school drive this afternoon. My name is Steve Falconbridge. On camera I have Senzo again from this morning. Fantastic to be in the team again. Welcome to a sunny and warm South Africa. The skies have cleared. Rejuvenating, and the life is coming back. We are on the search this afternoon for Tandi, one of our local leopards who has a cub. She moved her this morning, and Tristan was able to relocate on the position of where she moved her to a den, and sends an eye on that mission this afternoon to see if we can relocate on her. But for the moment, we are just here. We're out, we're off-road, we're trying to find where she is. It's quite delicate stuff. You don't want to get too close to a den site where there's a mother and a cub. You want obviously to give them space, give them sensitivity, and be very careful about what you're doing. So right now we are basically just here in the middle of the wilderness, seeing if we can hear anything, seeing if we can hear the small sounds of a cat calling its mother. It's quite an unmistakable sound, and something that if you're on foot and you hear, your heart just begins to beat much faster, and slowly your legs start to shake and the sweat starts to pour down the side of your head, because you know there is imminent danger. But in a vehicle like this, with these cats, they're quite used to the vehicle, so we do spend a lot of time viewing them from the vehicle. But on foot, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that is a very, very different story. Very dangerous place to be. We're not quite sure where she is. Could be anywhere in this sort of vicinity here. And if you can see around you, if Sans can just do a little pan, you can see that the bush is very, very thick. And for a leopard and a leopard cub, extremely camouflaged. Where could she be? Where could she be? So I believe the guys up in the Mara have been showing you some wonderful elephants this afternoon. How wonderful that must be. Elephants, definitely one of my favorite animals to view. Always doing something, always busy. Trunks and babies and water and eating and moving, constantly doing something. Leopards, when we do find her, probably not going to be doing too much. Atul, that's a very good question. Get a Kapi in South Africa? That is a no. A Kapi is more sort of Central Africa. It is a relative of the giraffe. We get giraffe down here, but a Kapi is something that's sort of what's the right word? It occurs there in the forests up there in the Central Africa, so no okapi here. But hopefully at some stage we might find you a giraffe, the tallest land mammal, huge and tall, long legs, long neck, adapted for its environment. Can you see anything, Sens? I don't see anything, but this is a patience game, this is a waiting game. There's water not far off, so the mother's brought the cub to a den site that has access to water. There are animals nearby. We saw lots of impala down by the water drinking. And as everybody knows, we need water to survive. Without water, we cannot continue. We cannot do our normal bodily functions. And so we have amazing conditions this side, and we're going to do our best to see if we can find anything. And I would like to see if Ralph up in the Mara is able to communicate with me and see if he can mimic orange-breasted bushrike. I believe we guys are playing a game, so let's see if Ralph can do an orange-breasted bushrike.
Thanks, Steve. Orange-breasted bushrike, that's an easy one. We'll get to that in a minute. But welcome to all the kiddies from the Parkway Elementary, and lovely to have your topic of science, and we'll do our best to answer all your questions. Please send them through your teacher. And here we have some plains zebra who very often frequent the Masai Mara here in Kenya. Them, and along with the wildebeest, they normally move in tandem or together. Feed on the long grass or the top parts of the grass, and they're not very picky, so they'll eat whatever grass is there. And the wildebeest are a little bit more picky because the zebra prepare the grass for the wildebeest. So if you're wondering why you see the zebra migrating and then you see the wildebeest, well, that's why, because the wildebeest like going behind the zebra, and you'll often find wildebeest just randomly following zebra around, and that's why they very nicely fit together in what they eat. They're all eating grass. Not like your elephants, which will eat grass and branches and leaves and all sorts, and your giraffe, which will eat on the leaves on the top of the trees. They also like a little bit of grass. But zebra and wildebeest, they'll only eat grass. So nice and interesting there. Kiddies, send your questions through and we'll do our best to answer. I wonder if any of you know what kind of animal that is. If you have the answer, quickly send it through. And there's another one of them. And they both lying down in the grass, just relaxing a little bit. And there's another one feeding, also got some grass that he's munching on. But he's very different looking to the zebra, isn't he? He's more brown, he doesn't have the black and white stripes. And he's got horns. The zebra don't have horns, do they? So that's very interesting. So Yen and Aubrey, you're wondering how big are zebras? Well, Yen and Aubrey, if you've ever seen a donkey, well, the zebras are like donkeys in pajamas. That's what I say. Or they're ready to go to jail, aren't they? Because they're wearing their jumpsuits. But they are exactly the same size as your average donkey. And they've got lovely black and white stripes. And if you're wondering why they've got black and white stripes, well, when there's a lot of zebra all together on the plains, and they're trying to stay safe from the lions, who are always looking to eat a tasty lion, a tasty zebra, sorry. And so the black and white stripes, when they run next to each other, it makes it very difficult for the lions to spot only one zebra, because all those lines are going past each other, and it's like if you take your fingers like this, Manu, and you run them past each other like this. That's what the black and white does for the predators. Very difficult for them to then identify just one animal, which is what they want to do. So we've been watching these animals here, and I'm sure we're going to stay here a little bit longer. So send us all your questions and comments. And I think my good friend Taylor has got another wonderful animal to show you.
On a safari this afternoon, and hopefully we're going to show you a whole bunch of wonderful animals. Now we're looking at the waterbuck at the moment, and you've already seen lots and lots of different critters, and we'll hopefully show you some more. My name is Taylor, and on camera with me today is Archie, and we are both very, very happy to have you join us, and I look forward to your questions. So like Ralph said, you can just ask your teacher away and then they'll get back to us. But these creatures are really, really, really interesting. Now, we've just had a lot of rain, so all these marshy areas, so the areas there's lots of grass and it tends to be quite waterlogged, which is where a lot of the animals are eating at the moment. They're spending lots of their time out here grazing, because all the vegetation is nice and lush, so it's delicious and really, really good for them. It's like eating really fresh fruit and vegetables, which is of course very good for you. And they're one of my favorite antelope species. I'll tell you why in a minute. And Kate, I think we have a telepathic connection, you and I. You just read my mind. You were wondering, why is it called a waterbuck? And I was actually just about to tell you why they're one of my favorites. So, these animals are water dependent. And what water dependent means is that they have to drink water every single day. Kind of like you and I do. How we should be drinking a couple of glasses of water at least every single day. And then they've got a really special adaptation. Now, every animal out here has got a specialty in order to help it survive. Again, under all that very thick fur, oily substance. And essentially what that does is it helps waterproof their coats, and it's amazing. The hair of a waterbuck is actually quite hollow, so it also helps them to not sink. So that's why they like to hang around in these marshy areas, and you often see them when they're frightened running across shallow rivers or even a deep river. They're quite good swimmers, and then they'll be able to outswim and then outrun their prey on the other side. So that oily substance doesn't let the hair absorb the water, And then having that extra buoyancy, it helps them go through the water a lot quicker. And then when they come out the other side, they're not completely dry, but they're a lot drier than what was maybe chasing them. So that'll give them a chance to get away. So how cool is that adaptation for these creatures? But these are just the girls. Ooh, excuse me. That was a big sneeze. A few of them were looking at me, but not all of them. I think they've heard many people sneezing before. But just making sure that it's not a threat, so they all put their heads up, except that one. That one doesn't care. So the boys, the male waterbuck, have got the most beautiful horns, and they curve forward. Now, the species of waterbuck that we're looking at is called the Dafasa waterbuck, and in South Africa, there is another type of waterbuck, so you're going to have to ask James or maybe Steve to try and show you a common waterbuck, and then you can see the difference. The common waterbuck is actually my favorite, but don't tell these ones. But we're going to carry on and see if we can maybe find you some lions or perhaps a predator of some sorts of things. And James is, of course, out on bushwalk in South Africa, and we'll have to ask him about those waterbuck.
Yes. Good afternoon, everybody at Parkway Elementary School. Welcome to this end of the Sunset Safari. My name is James, and I am on foot. Well, actually, I'm on my bottom at the moment. I'm sitting on a termite mound. You can see here, beyond us, we've got a number of wildebeest and zebra and impala, and hopefully in here we don't have any snakes, because if there's one thing that will ruin my afternoon, it's being bitten on the bottom by a snake. Snakes quite like to live in these termite mounds once the termites have gone away. And I think you'll probably find that there are some termites still in here because there's no grass on top of this mound. You can see that. But there are also other things living in here. There are spiders. I can see spiders webbing over here. There we are. And I can also see that there are probably some mongoose in here. Mongoose are very small carnivores, about the size of a large rat, and they go living in amongst these holes here. Now, it's lovely to have you with us, and so please ask me any questions you like. All you do, of course, is ask your teacher. She will relay it to our control room, and they will relay it into my ear. And magically, you'll hear your name, and I will answer any questions that you might have. Now, our plan today, as we walk around on foot here in the wilderness, is to go and see if we can't find the tracks of a big male leopard called Tingana. Now, he was seen just over this hill here yesterday evening, and this morning these animals here, the zebra and the wildebeest and the impala, were making a noise like this. They were going We think that this leopard is around here somewhere. We don't have to worry too much. We can walk around on foot because the animals here see us, yes, as predators, which means normally they stay away from us. So it becomes perfectly safe to track leopards on foot. Now, Micah and Nate, you're wondering where zebras get their stripes from. Well, that's a difficult question to answer. But I would say they get their stripes from the same place that you get your hair color. Now, of course, you kids are all very young, which means that all of you still have hair. You can see that those days are over for me, unfortunately. But for a zebra, and for you guys, the hair comes from something called a follicle inside the body. And in a zebra, of course, they're very lucky. They've got two kinds of follicles, sometimes three. They produce white hair and they produce black hair. So although a zebra looks like it's been painted, it hasn't been painted. All of those stripes are made up of thousands and thousands of little hairs, both black and white ones. So it's just the same as the fur on a dog, or the hair on your head, or the fur on a rat, for example. Now, We are just going to walk very carefully along here because a leopard would like to live in the tree line. They wouldn't be out in the open like this, and so we'll walk along this tree line here. Now, Hope and Diamond, you're wondering if zebras are afraid of snakes. You'll find they're probably not terrified, but they will react to snakes. And they'll react by either stomping on them or just moving away or looking at them like that, and you'll be able to see if there's something on the ground. But most importantly, a snake is probably more terrified of a zebra than a zebra is of a snake, because if a zebra is very big, you can see them over there. They probably weigh, the big ones, in the region of 800 pounds, which is enormous. And so what they will do is move along the ground, and that makes a noise, and snakes can feel that noise of them moving along the ground, and the snakes will hide somewhere in a hole perhaps. Now, I spotted something quite nice over here. There it is. Unfortunately, it's just flown away, but it's landed. Now, we're going to test VM, who's on camera now. We're going to see how skillful he's feeling today. Ooh, it's flown away again. It's a butterfly called an acria. You see it, VM? Right, there it is, opening and closing its wings. Now, I know that you guys are in the middle of winter, but we here in South Africa are in the middle of summer. And so we've got lots of beautiful insects around. And that's one of them. That's a butterfly there. And if you listen very carefully, you can perhaps hear the sound of the cicada, or what you would call in America a cicada. And it's a little bug about this big, and it's going... And it thinks that that's a beautiful song to be singing to female cicadas, and so he's hoping to attract a mate. Now, let us head straight back to Steve, who's got a much closer look at some of those.
If they come to me and you can get that hornbill, welcome back, folks. We have got some impala down by the pan, and just off to the left of him, if you have a quick look quickly, Sens, there's that hornbill in the grass there. All the Lion King followers out there will be very familiar with that bird. There he is, Zazu. Southern red-billed hornbill. And he is running around in the grass, probably feeding on ants, termites, insects, anything juicy and succulent down there, but most likely will be insects at this time of year. We've had quite a bit of rainfall, and with the rain comes the swarms. Please feel free, folks, to send through your questions at Safari Live on Twitter or on the YouTube feed. You can see there's a group of impala busy feeding. Very short, what looks like grass, but is in fact small little forbs. Small forbs are little herbs, or as you probably say in America, herbs. Lots of nitrogen, lots of nutrients, and they're growing just around this little water hole. You'll notice that they're in a group. You see that one's head is up. Quite a few of them. It's quite nice to be out in a group with some friends. Going out on your own is not so much fun if there's leopards lurking around. Leopards and lions and hyenas lurking in the darkness. So what we have here is a group, a cooperative breeding group, whereby you have females and adults, youngsters, Kaylin and Savannah are asking how cold it gets in South Africa. We have varying temperatures. At the moment it is summer. It is getting up to the 85, 90 degree Fahrenheit. Today the temperature is a bit cooler than that, probably about in the 70s Fahrenheit, probably high 20s degrees Celsius. So we are in the summer months. No snow here, but beautiful, beautiful clouds. Wonderful time of year. Lots of insects, lots of baby animals. Very, very green, as we can see. And there's water in abundance. This is the time of plenty for your antelope. It's the time for them to get fat, to build up their condition. And just quite an interesting sort of note. If you see all these impala here, all their heads are down. And it's because they can't be snuck up on. You can see a leopard. She deposited a cub in a den site this morning, but we weren't able to relocate on her, and it's best to rather leave the area, because if she's not there, we don't want to stress the cub out or cause any negative responses there, so rather just leave until mum comes back. And there we have what is not an impala.
How beautiful is this? I think our sky may win. It is always so spectacular. So that's the escarpment at the back, called Olololo, and then those beautiful rays of light coming down and through the clouds are called crepuscular rays. Oh, isn't that stunning? Everything about the Mara is so beautiful. The birds that are chirping, all the different types of animals that we can see. There's more elephants. There's elephants everywhere today. They've all come out to enjoy the nice green grass, and in a few days' time it's going to be even greener. So they'll be happy about that. There hasn't been much rain around here, so the grass is getting a little bit dry. And then it gets a bit chewy, I suppose. Not that I eat grass all the time. Sometimes I pick a piece and I nibble on it. But you can see them all flapping their ears and swatting their tails. There's lots of flies and lots of insects around with all the water that is now here. I've even noticed that there are more flies than usual. Looks like she's been playing in the mud. Alice, you're wondering, where do flies sleep? That's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. I love it. So, what I've noticed is that flies will perch themselves, kind of just like birds. They want to keep out of the wind, they want to keep out of the rain. So, in trees that have got lots of leaves on them, on stems of plants and little shrubs. So anything like that is typically where I've seen a gathering of flies at night. Sometimes they're naughty though, and they stay up way past their bedtime. But you're right, there are far few flies out at night than there are during the day. There's so many today. But luckily the elephants have got those big ears and those long tails to help combat them, and then that's also why they cover themselves in mud. And to keep nice and cool on the hot days out here in Africa. And then also all that mud will form a coating, so it'll form a layer between the skin, and then when the insects sit on them, it doesn't bother them so much. And if they've got any mites and ticks, that will actually help suffocate. It will kill all the parasites too. And then normally what an elephant does after it's had a mud bath and walked around for a little bit, it finds a sturdy tree and then rubs up against it and has a good scratch. So it'll actually pull off any of those parasites that are still around there. And there's a tiny little elephant. You can see it's so small that the grass is almost covering the top of its head. I'm trying to keep up. It must be difficult to see for that little elephant. I bet it's just following its siblings around. Now, Hope and Diamond, you're wondering, how big do elephants get in Africa? They get quite large. So they can weigh up to, the big boys, ones with the massive big tusks, can get up to about 5.5 tons, 5,500 kilograms. What's that? Like 11,000 pounds. Massive, hey? Isn't that incredible that they can get that big? Well, Not quite as tall as a giraffe. A giraffe takes the cake when it comes to being the tallest animal in the world, but an elephant is a close second. So the African elephants are quite big. But most of these are females, and that's typically what you find in the herds. So you have a family with the moms and aunts and grandmothers, and then they have all their children. So you might find that some of them are related for years and years. So it's the girls that stay in the herd. And then unfortunately, when the boys become teenagers, a little bit past teenagers, they get a bit bossy and they start pushing around the little elephants. And their mom isn't too happy about that. And then they try and they're a bit naughty with the moms too. And then the moms have to sort them out. So they normally chase them away. And then they have to go live on their own until they're big and strong. And we'll start looking for a girlfriend elephant, essentially. There's a little bird flying through as well. But this is one of my favorite times of the day. It's when all the birds are starting to call one last time before the sun goes down and they have to go to bed. You also hear all the insects making noise, and then they normally become a little bit quiet at night, although then the nighttime insects come out. Isn't that amazing? I'm hoping we don't get any rain today. These don't look like rain clouds just yet. Some of them are building, but for now, I think we're okay. There's a little bit of a breeze, so it is pushing those clouds away. But it wouldn't be a problem if we had some more rain. It would actually be a good thing if we could get some more. Everything, of course, would be much greener. Now, I'm going to go to some lions that I know are not too far from the escarpment. It's going to take me a little while to get there. Unfortunately, I'm not sure who I'm sending you down to in South Africa. However, you might be faced with James on bushwalk looking for Tingana, or perhaps Steve is going to find a bird.